Hello everyone, I am going to do a video solution for a recent GCSE maths on the CCEA exam board. This is on a new GCSE 1 to 9 and it took place in 25th of May 2017 and it is a calculator exam. So I will be going through each one of these questions in this video, and we will see how we can proceed with solving a GCSE exam paper. Okay, first question is about algebra, basic algebra. This is about expand bracket 3x minus y bracket close squared. This is a good question, and it can be sort of tricky for some of the students because sometimes students are used to, for these cases, to start writing this is equal to 9x squared minus y squared. So they just look at a bracket and then just they expand that square to each one of the terms, which basically is a wrong answer. So with any sort of bracket squared like this, you need to write the bracket separately. So just write 3x minus y times 3x minus y, and then one by one time these as you do in a normal expanding two brackets. So in here we will get 9x squared minus 3xy minus again 3xy plus y squared. And if we basically simplify, the final answer would be 9x squared minus 6xy and plus y squared. Okay, the second part of this question is about factorizing. Factorize x squared minus 25. When we are factorizing, in this order, look at how we can do things. The first thing to look is there a common factor or term? The second thing to look is a common difference of two squares. Difference of two squares and squares. And the third one is a quadratic. So the third one is a quadratic form. So in this order, try to look at a factorizing problems. So with this one in here, we don't have a common term between x squared and 25. So the next one is the difference of two squares. Is this a square? Yes, and that is a square too. So that is a difference of two squares. So the answer would be x minus 5 times x plus 5. And which we can basically put this answer in here. And difference of two squares, just to as a reminder, comes from a squared minus b squared equals a minus b times a plus b. So this is some sort of identity. In a way, if you try to time these things as a normal expansion of two brackets, you will see that you will get to a squared minus b squared. So just we are using identity to factorize this algebraic term. Question 2 is Gillian sold her formal dress online for £130 and 50 pence. This was 1/8 more than the cost of price of the dress. What was the cost of price of a dress? So with this question, just definitely try to read the question to understand it better. If you imagine that the cost of price of the dress was X, just as an example, this says the price is 1/8 more than 1/8 more than the cost of price of the dress. So 1/8 of it, the cost of a dress plus the cost of a dress, because that is 1/8 more than, that is basically equal to 130.50. So cost of a dress plus 1/8 more, that is equal to the cost of 130.50. Now this gives us an equation in here. So if I add these two fractions, that would give us 9x over 8 equals 130.50. If we time both sides to 8, would be 9x equals 130.50 times 8. And I'm going to show this times with a point just to avoid mixing with the x. And from here, x basically would be equal to 130.50 times 80, so times 8 divided by 9. So if I do this on the calculator, so the answer would be 116. It is a good news. So with this sort of questions, if you did go to an answer that is not a whole number, or sometimes if it is a repeating decimal, just check one more time your solution just to make sure that everything is okay, because you normally should have a clear whole number as an answer. So if you go to the next question, a number is halved, then 5 is subtracted. The answer is 1/3 of the original number. Write an equation and solve it to find the original number. A solution by try and error improvement will not be accepted. Okay, so we have 3 marks in here. We have an equation 1 mark and answer 2 marks, 2 more marks. So we have a number. Again, we are going to consider that our number is x, and x is halved. So x divided by 2, then 5 is subtracted. So minus 5, that answer equals 1/3 of the original number. So this is equal to 1/3 of x. So the equation here would be x over 2 minus 5 equals x over 3. Now, the second part of the question about solving this and finding x, the best answer, but the best form to solve this sort of algebraic equations is to remove fractions. And when we say remove fractions, we need to look at timing everything in both sides of this fraction to a number that we can remove fractions, and that is a least common multiple between these fractions, which is 2 and 3, and the least common multiple between them is 6. So what we are doing in here, I'm just going to show the details in here. So we are going to say we are timing everything to 6, left and right. So when we time it to left, it times to both of those terms. So we are going to say 6 times x over 2 minus 5 times 6 equals 6 times x over 3. So the reason that we do this is because we know that we can simplify those fractions, and I'm just going to again 5 times 6, I'm putting the sign as a time sign as a point for now. So when I'm timing this, if you look at the fraction part, we have a video about that. 6 times x over 2, this is 3x, and 6 times x over 3, that is 2x. So what we have, and 5 times 6 in the middle is 30. I'm just going to write 30. So basically what we have is 3x minus 30 equals 2x. Now, if I minus 2x both sides and plus 30, so minus 2x both sides would be x equals 30. Or we can say that we can take that minus 30 to the other side, becomes plus 30. We can take 2x to this side, becomes minus, and 3x minus 2x would be just x. So the final answer in here is 30, and again is a complete number. Okay, next question is simultaneous equation, and as we can see in here, this is not in a really nice order. We have x minus a number equals a y, and x equals a y minus number. So it would be good to first organize that and write it in an organized form. So I'm going to, on the first equation, I'm going to take the 5y to the other side and minus 15 to this side. So I am going to add to do minus 15 from both, minus 5y from both sides, and add 15 to both sides again. So that would give me x minus 5y equals 15. On the second equation, I just need to take minus 8y to the other side. In a way, I need to add 8y to both sides of equation. So that would be 3x plus 8y equals minus 1. So when we look at in here, we can use a method of elimination. So to use that elimination method, we need to find or equate in a way by timing one of the equations, or sometimes both of the equations, to some numbers, equate either x and its coefficient or y and its coefficient in a way that if we add the top equation, if we add this top equation to this equation, or if we subtract, we can eliminate either x or y. To do that, I see that we have 3x in here and we have x in here. So it is easier to say that if I time the top equation to 3, what I have done, I can get a 3x, which then 3x and 3x are equal, and if I subtract, I have eliminated x. So this is the plan that we do to solve this simultaneous equation. So if I time the top equation to 3, and I need to time it to each term, so that would be 3x minus 15y equals 45. At the bottom equation, we will still have 3x plus 8y equals minus 1. Now, as you can see, we have the 3x and 3x, which we planned. So what we need to do is now that top equation minus the bottom equation, what we have, 3x minus 3x would be 0. That is exactly what we wanted. Then we have minus 15y minus 8y. So minus 15y minus 8y. So that will give us minus 23y equals 45 minus minus 1 is 45 plus 1, which is 46. And if we divide both sides by minus 23, y equals minus 2. 46 divided by minus 23 is minus 2, which is a whole number, and that is a good news. So if you do get a number that's fraction or in a decimal form, do go back and check your answer. There could be some sort of minus wrong in some point, so it is important to recheck your answer. Now that I have found y, I can put that minus 2 into one of these equations. So I can maybe put it on a second equation. Second equation, we have 3x equals minus 8y minus 1. and minus, we know that y equals minus 2, so I'm just going to replace 3x equals minus 8 times minus 2 minus 1. Minus 8 times minus 2 is plus 16. Plus 16 minus 1 is 15. So we have 3x equals 15, dividing by 3 both sides. X equals 15 divided by 3 is 5. So we have x equals 5 and y equals minus 2. So I'm going to write it in here, 5 and minus 2. But just to make sure and that you have done this exactly right, you can test your answer if you have time in the exam. So we did use the second equation to find out x. Now, if we could put the same x and y that we have got into the first equation that we didn't use, and make sure that that gives us an equal, that these two numbers, they satisfy that equation, that would be a good check to make sure that you have definitely got the right answer. So x is 5, so I'm going to root 5 minus 15 equals 5 times y, which is 5 times minus 2. So 5 minus 15 is minus 10, 5 times minus 2 is minus 10, so that satisfies that equation. So therefore, we are sure that we have done a right, our solution is the right answer. Now, the next question here is about solving a quadratic equation. There are many different ways that you can do a quadratic equation. You could either factorize, or you could do a completing square method, or you can use directly the formula. For a calculator GCSE, I would recommend using the formula and knowing the formula. So the formula is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. X equals minus b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. The reason that I recommend formula, because that can be applied to any sort of problem. So you might be factorizing and then finding it difficult because you can't find the right numbers. This is, if you like, a sure route or method to solve a quadratic equation. The only thing that you need to be careful and you need to practice on is about how you could put this on a calculator, especially how the signs with minuses and pluses, they come and basically give us the right answer into this equation. Based on this routine of a quadratic equation, in here we have a equals 1, b equals minus 5. It's very important that this is b minus 5, not just 5. And c equals minus 24. Again, you have that minus 24. So I'm going to put these values in. Minus b would be 5 plus minus square root of b squared is minus 5 squared. So I'm just going to write it down in here. So I'm just going to write the details, but you can just directly write 25. Because this is a video and I want to show the details, I'm going to write the details. But when we have b squared and you have minus 5, so minus 5 times minus 5, 25, you can just write it down. Now I'm going to write minus 4 times a, which is 1 times minus 24. Now divided all of that to 2 times 1. So in here, 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times minus 24 is minus 96. But we have also another minus in here. So that really minus times minus would be a plus. So what we are really having in here is 25 plus 96. And that is 121, and square root of 121 is 11. And so the answer in here would be 5 plus minus 11 divided by 2 times 1 is 2. If we consider the plus, 5 plus 11 divided by 2 would be 16 divided by 2, which is 8. 5 minus 11 is minus 6 divided by 2 is minus 3. So the answer for x in here would be x equals 8 and minus 3. So x would be equal to 8 and minus 3. Again, you could check if you have time in the exam, or you're coming back to look at reviewing the question. You can replace these 8 and minus 3 inside this x squared minus 5x minus 24, and you should see that that should add up to a 0. So that should satisfy that equation. Again, as always, if you don't have a whole number and you have, especially if you have a repeating decimals, do check your answer if you have done some sort of mistake in solving the question. So the next question is a geometry, and this is this is a circle with O as center. Okay, we have an image in here. OA is 8.4 centimeter, BC is 10.6 BC, and angle AOC equals 60 degrees. Show that the radius of the circle is 4.2 centimeter. So show that the radius of the circle is 4.2 centimeter. Now the radius of the circle is OC. So we need to sometimes in the maths just reduce the questions to smaller bits and parts. If you are familiar with the trigonometry and looking at that, you can just simplify this in a way. Just consider that OCA. So I'm just going to simplify it and just basically draw that OCA. This angle is 60, and we have 8.4 centimeter in here. Now we want to find the value of OC. And to this angle of 60, the OC is adjacent, and 8.4 is a hypotenuse. So we know that the only the trigonometry element that does include adjacent and hypotenuse in definition is a cos. So cos of 60 equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is OC divided by 8.4. So from here, OC would be equal to 8.4 times cos of 60. So you need to use your calculator to find this. Cos of 60 is half times 8.4, so OC would be equal to 4.2 centimeter. So that's the answer for first part, which basically just show that radius of the circle is 4.2, which is how we show this. The second part of the question has 4 marks, and just look at this question. It has 3 and 4 marks. It is relatively high mark, so it's important that you learn these basic trigonometric concepts. Section B says, hence calculate the size of the angle OBC, which is here. Again, we need to reduce the question to smaller bits. This time, I am going to just consider the triangle OCB. So I have OCB. I already know that my OC equals 4.2. And also I know that BC equals 10.6. And this angle here, that is what we want to find out, and that is theta. I just put the theta value as a value. So again, for theta that we want to find, we have opposite and we have adjacent. So what sort of trigonometry, which one of the trigonometry elements have the opposite and adjacent? And that is tan. So we can say that tan of theta equals opposite over adjacent. So that is 4.2 divided by 10.6. I am going to put this on calculator just to see if we get a reasonable limited number. 4.2 divided by 10.6. Okay, we don't get basically sort of a number that is limited that we can write in here. So, but what I have on calculator is 0.396226 and continues. Now, with these elements, you could do 4.2 divided by 10.6 and basically round it up and write it down. So I'm just going to show the two different ways, show a method and possibly a better way to do this. So I'm going to then round up this number to 2 decimals, and that rounding up, that would give us that would give me 0.40. So theta from here, tan of theta equals 0.40. I'm looking for a theta itself, so I need to use tan minus. So theta would be equal to tan minus of 0.40. So if I just do tan minus of 0.20 as 40, answer that I have is 21.8 degrees. If you write this answer, your answer would most likely will be accepted. But a better way of solving this is because by rounding the number, we are reducing the accuracy of the answer. And in some cases, it can affect the answer significantly. So rather than in here 4.2 divided by 10.6 writing 0.40, I can keep that 4.2 divided by 10.6 as it is. So what I can do from here as a second method, I can write theta equals tan minus 1 of 4.2 divided by 10.6. By doing this, when I do the tan minus 1, I am basically considering the all of the digits, at least as long as your calculator considers. So if I do this now, and if I just write in here on my calculator, show tan minus 1 of a bracket 4.2 divided by 10.6. And I am getting 21.615. So 21.615. So if I round it up to, it's 6147, but if I round it up just to two digits, it would be just 61. And as you can see, there is a bit of difference between 21.61 and 21.8. I would assume that this would be acceptable if you just write 21.8, but a better solution is to not round up the numbers and put the whole number as a fraction into the tan minus 1 to get more accurate answer. So I do recommend that to do this. So the answer basically here would be, a better answer is 21.61 degrees. Okay, we go to the next question. The mean of 4 numbers is x. Y is added to one of the numbers and z is added to each of the other 3 numbers. Write the expression for the new mean. Again, very creative way of questioning in here. You need to try to build an equation by reading the text. So you need to convert a text concept into a mathematical form. So the mean of 4 numbers is x. So I'm just going to show the mean with x bar. X bar equals, I'm just going to consider just just A, B, C, D for as 4 numbers, A, B plus C plus D divided by 4. Now, y is added to one of the numbers and z is added to each of the other 3 numbers. Write an expression for the new mean. So, as you can see, x bar equals a plus b plus c plus d divided by 4, and those a and b and c and d are our 4 numbers. So we are adding y to one of the numbers. So the next one, and so the new mean would be new mean. So I'm going again to show it by x bar equals a plus y. We are adding y to one of the numbers. And then we are adding z to each one of the other 3 plus b plus z. So these are just single numbers in here because we're just adding these to those numbers. Again, plus c plus z, and again plus d plus z. And all of that is divided by 4, new mean. We are adding basically adding to the numbers, but the total of the numbers still is 4. If I simplify this and take, because this is brackets and all of them are plus, I can just take A, B, C, D's separately. So in here, I can say that x bar equals A plus B plus C plus D plus y plus 3z. If I am adding these z plus z plus z 3z divided by 4. Just to correct, just to show a bit of better signing, because the question says the mean of 4 numbers x, I'm just going to put on the first one, I'm going to put the mean of the 4 number, show it by x. This x bar is the new mean that is at the end of the question says write an expression for the new mean. So I'm just showing that x with the x bar. So now I can come in here and separate these. So I can write x bar equals a plus b plus c plus d divided by 4 plus y plus 3z divided by 4. The reason I do this, because I know that this value here is the x, which is the mean of original 4 numbers. So I can write that x bar equals x plus y plus 3z divided by 4. So the answer is write an expression for the new mean. So the new mean would be x plus y plus 3z divided by 4. Okay, so we now go to the next equation, next question. We go to the next question now, question 8. Examinations in chemistry, physics, and biology were taken by 120 students. Each examination was marked out of 100, and the cumulative frequency graphs below illustrates the result. So we have 3 different graphs in here for chemistry, physics, and biology, and we have a cumulative frequency in the vertical axis and the marks on the horizontal axis. Now, it says which subject has the highest median. So as you know, in a cumulative frequency, we go to the middle point, which is 60. Between 0 and 120, the 60th would be the middle number. And if I just imagined putting these 4 and 4 and 4, so the middle sum would be somewhere around here. So this point, so for this one is about that point, so we don't have exact number, so I'm just going to, so then we have this point, and on the same line we have this point. So which one is the highest median? As you can see, this point in here has the highest median, so that would be chemistry. In which subject was the interquartile range the greatest? So interquartile range is between n plus 1 divided by 4, which is a lower quartile, and 3n plus 1 divided by 4, which is a higher quartile. Or for here, if I say 120 divided by 4 would be 30, so between 30th and 90th. So that is the interquartile between lower quartile and upper quartile. So I'm just going to change the color in here, and looking at here the middle of these two. So we have 4 in here, so it would be 5. So this would be somewhere on here. And another 5 in here gives us this point. So this is the interquartile there. And another 5 in here is here. So coming here, and 5 going up in the middle of there. So this is interquartile. And 5 in here. Which is in here, and then the 5, which is basically here. So that's another interquartile. So the largest interquartile, as you can see, is in here, in this one, which is biology. Third part of this question is the pass mark was 50. What percentage of students did not pass physics? So the pass mark was 50. So just to look at this one, I'm going to clean up this physics one in here and just look at solving that question. So pass mark of 50, we have 50 at there, and if I connect it to this side, we get to this point. So if we look at what we want to find out is that what is the, it says what percentage of students did not pass. So this section, what is the percentage of that compared to the whole of this student? Because that small section there, those are the students that they didn't pass. So if you look if I look at this grade in here, I see that is around 2.5. So I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that looks to me that is about 1/8. So I'm going to write 1/8, but because I need to convert this to percentage, I'm going to write it 1/8 times 100. I can use a calculator to get a much better answer in a better form. So the final answer in here would be 12.5%. Okay, we go to the next question now. The question says E varies as the square of x. When x is 0.5, E is 1.4. Find the formula expressing E in terms of x. This question is a good question and has a lot of applications in physics and science, but I would have liked to see a better wording of the question. E varies as the square of x. I think that basically what the intention in here is saying is that E is proportional to square of x. So E is proportional to square of x. So what we want to write is E is proportional to to x squared. And when we have this proportionality, we can convert that proportionality to a formula by adding a constant. I'm going to consider that constant as a k times x squared. Now, to find out what that constant is, I can now use the information that is being provided to me in here, which is when x equals 0.5, e is 1.4. So e is 1.4 equals k. We don't know, that's what we want to find out. And x is 0.5, so 0.5 squared. Now, I need to divide both sides to 0.5 squared. 0.5 squared is, I can just write it here, that is 0.25k. So k would be equal to 1.4 divided by 0.25, which is times 4, that would be 5.6. So the formula that expresses e in terms of x becomes, that is the important part, now that we have found k, so that would be e equals 5.6 x squared. So that is the formula expressing e in terms of x. I am replacing that 5.6 back into the formula here. Calculate the value of e when x equals 1.25. This is a simple replacing the x with 1.25. So e would be equal to 5.6 times x squared, which is 1.25. That's the value of x squared. So I just need to do this on a calculator. So 1.25 times 1.25 times 5.6. So the answer would be 8.75. The last part of this question says, by how much has x increased when e changes from 2.5 to 4.8? Give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. By how much has x increased when e changes from 2.5 to 4.8? So what I am suggesting to do this, because we are looking at, we have the changes of e, but we want to find out changes of x, is that what I'm suggesting is to put the value of e into this formula, and for each one of these values of e, find the x, and then minus it. That minus would be the answer, because we want to find out how much the x has been increased. So I start with 2.5. So if I put e as a 2.5 equals, based on that formula, I am still using the formula here because everything is based on that formula, 5.6 times x squared. Okay, so I can find out from here that if I divide this both sides to 5.6 and square root it, x would be equal to square root of 2.5 divided by 5.6. So I am dividing to 5.6 both sides, and then because I want to find x and I have x squared, I need to square root it, and that would be x equals square root of 2.5 divided by 5.6. And I am just going to find out that. So square root of 2.5 divided by 5.6. So the answer, I'm going to write the answer in about 4 decimal places, and I will tell you why I need to write it in 4 decimal places. For now, I'm going to write it in 4 decimal places, so this would be 0.6681. And I am going to repeat exactly the same thing, but this time with 4.8 as a e. So this would be 4.8 equals 5.6 x squared. X exactly the same as the other side would be square root of 4.8 divided by 5.6. And if I again use this on a calculator and find it into, I'm going to again put it on a 4 decimal. So this would be 0.9258. So increase in x is, I need to do 0.9258 minus 0.6681. I have the 9258 already on my calculator, so I don't need to do it again. So I just need to do the minus. So if I minus that to 0.66 and 81, so the answer I have is 0.2577. So the answer, change of x, change or increase of x, I can show it by delta just in case, because we normally show the change, but increase amount of x increase is 0.2577. But the answer that I need to write says give your answer correct to 2 decimal places. So if I round this to 2 decimal places, the final answer is 0.26. It does round up to, the 5 rounds up to 6 because the next number after 5 is 7. The reason that I wanted to write x's, 2 x's that we found out in 4 decimal, or sometimes we can write it in 3 decimal, but I would prefer to write it in 2 decimal more than what is requested, because this rounding up in here has effect in your final answer. So I'm just going to change the number and just to see how things can change. If the x that we found in here was, we just rounded up to 2 decimal, and that was 0.6, that would be 0.67. I'm just going to write it in this side. And this one in here, if I again round it up, would be 0.93. And if I do 0.93 minus 0.67, that would give me 6 and 2, 0.26. That is still a right answer if you had still rounded up in here to 2 decimal and in here 2 decimal and if you had minus that. But if one of these numbers, for example, if that 5 was 4, then your 2 decimal, that would have been just 92. And that would have made a difference. So this would have been 0.25. which is different from 0.26. So it is important to keep few more decimals so that if the next third decimal is affecting the minus or subtraction of those 2 numbers, we are still safe on having the accurate answer when we write it in 2 decimal places. Okay. So we go to the next question here, and this is find the equation of a line through 0.4 perpendicular to the line of y equals 3x. So first of all, perpendicular to y equals 3x. When we say parallel or perpendicular, we need to look at what is the condition of parallel or perpendicular, and these are they relate to a gradient of a line. So y equals mx plus c as an equation of a line. This is gradient or slope, and this is a y-intercept. Parallel or perpendicular, they are directly relate to a gradient of a line or slope of a line. We know that two lines are parallel if the gradients are equal. So if we have m of two equation of lines are equal, then we have those two lines parallel. So the example of this is y equals 2x minus 1, y equals 2x plus 5. The gradient of these two lines are equal, so therefore they are parallel. The condition for perpendicular, however, is that m1 equals minus 1 over m2. So one of them equals minus reciprocal of the other one. So the example of this is y equals 2x minus 1 and y equals minus 1 over 2x plus 5. So as you can see in here, this minus 1 over 2 and 2, they are minus reciprocals. So we are going to use that. I just reviewed that in the side so that we are going to apply it to this question. Perpendicular to the line y equals 3x. What is the gradient of this line? The gradient of that is 3. So if we have a line that is perpendicular to y equals 3x, its gradient has to be minus reciprocal of this 3 because they are perpendicular. So the gradient of the line that we will be going to write its equation is minus 1 over 3. So minus reciprocal. Now we have the gradient of the line that we want to write the equation, and we also know that the equation passes through 0 and 4. Where is 0 and 4? If you look at the xy axis, 0 and 4 is somewhere on here. In a way, it is a y-intercept. So it is a y-intercept. So which makes our job and solving this problem much more easier, because all you need to write now is y equals minus 1 over 3x plus 4, because we know that y-intercept is 4. So we know that y-intercept is 4. If the problem was slightly harder than this, and just as an example had said that the line is going to pass through, just as an example, 2 and 5 rather than 0 and 4, which this 2 and 5 will not directly give us the y-intercept, then what we need to do is based on what the gradient that we have, we know that the equation of the line would be y equals minus 1 over third of x plus c, and that c is a y-intercept that we don't know in that case. Then we need to put 2 and 5 into this equation and find the c. So 5 is y, 2 is the x value, so 5 would be minus 1 over 3 times 2 plus c. And from here we find the c, and then we replace back the c into this equation here, and that would be the equation of the line. Okay, so you can solve this problem even if this 0 and 4 was something completely random rather than being directly y-intersect. Now, going to the next problem. This problem has 7 marks, and again a simultaneous equation. So y equals x plus 3 and x squared plus y squared equals 14. Give your answers to 2 decimal places. So if I just write this in here, y equals x plus 3 and x squared plus y squared equals 14. Unlike the other simultaneous equation that we did on the several questions back, in this sort of questions, it is always easier to use substitution method rather than elimination. So what does that substitution means? It means that we have the value of the y from here directly, and we can substitute that value of the y into the second equation. So if I substitute that y into the second equation, instead of y, what I have is x squared plus y squared. I'm just going to write x plus 3 squared equals 14. So I substitute the value of the y directly into the second equation. I need to expand and write this into a standard quadratic equation. So that would be x squared plus, again, we had the very first question of this exam, you need to separate these and time x plus 3 times x plus 3. So don't just write x squared plus 9 because that is a wrong thing. So if you do that and simplify, I'm just going to write the answer, x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 14. So 2x squared plus 6x. 14 comes to this side. To make it the standard form would be minus 14 would be minus 5 equals 0. Now in here I can now use the formula. Again, we had a question just using direct formula, and that answers to that's a sort of a reliable route to any quadratic equation. So my a equals 2, b equals 6, and c equals minus 5. So I'm going to write the answer. I have repeated the formula before. So the x in here would be minus b, which minus 6, plus minus square root of b squared, which is 36, minus 4ac. But minus 4ac, because c is minus, and we have another minus in here, minus times minus would be plus. So minus 4 times 2 times 5, which is plus 40. So that would be plus 40. So 36 minus 4 times a times c, a times c is 10, minus 10 times 4 is minus 40, minus 40 would be plus 40, divided by 2a, which is 4. And that would be, if I simplify this, would be minus 6 plus minus square root of 76 divided by 4. In here, I just want to see if I can simplify the square root of 76. 76 would be 19 times 4. And we can write it to square root of 19. Before doing that, because I have come to a point that I have a number that is not a whole number, I want to have a quick check on the solution. So I come back in here, y equals x plus 3, x squared plus y squared equals 14. I am replacing x plus 3 in here. And then I expand this, x squared plus 6x plus 9 equals 14. So far is right. Then we have this 2x squared plus 6x minus 5 equals 0. So that is right too. A is 2, b is 6, and c is minus 5. So this looks fine to me. So I'm going to simplify as it is. So I'm just going to write minus 6 plus minus 2 square root of 19 over 4. And the other answer would be basically, if I divide it, factorize 2 from the denominator and simplify it by one of the 2's at the denominator. So factorize 2 in numerator and simplify it with denominator, I will have minus 3 plus minus square root of 19 all divided by 2. So I am going to write the values in here. So my x1, because I have two answers, is minus 3 plus square root of 19 divided by 4. And my second one is x2 equals minus 3 minus square root of 19 divided by 4. But interestingly, I have a simple equation in here that I just need to replace and find y, y equals x plus 3. Very simple. But before doing that, because in the question says give your answers to 2 decimal places, so which basically now by reading that you can see that y square root of 19, and we didn't get a whole number in here because we can see that we will have a decimal number. I am going to put this minus 3 plus the square root of 19 over 4 into a calculator and get basically a number in here for us. So square root of 19 minus 3 equal, then divided by 4. Be careful about effective use of calculator. So what I have in here, because it says 2 decimal place, I have 0.339. I'm going to put 0.34. I'm going to repeat the same thing on the second one. So I'm going to write minus square root of 19, and that is minus 3, and that is divided by 4, and is minus 1.8397. 2 decimals would be minus 1.84. So for y, the only thing that we need to do is just adding a 3 based on this equation. So our set of equations, set of answers would be x1 would be, I'm going to write in here, x1 equals 0.34 and y1 equals plus 3, that would be 3 plus 3, 4. x2 equals minus 1.84 and y2 would be that plus 3. That plus 3 would be plus 1.16. So we have 2 set of equation. In a way, we have 2 points. 2 different points. Just to clarify a bit in here, this one in here is equation of a circle. You should know that that is equation of a circle. Circle that is centered at 0 and 0, and the radius is square root of 14. Square root of 14 is close to 4, but not exactly 4, so somewhere around 3.7. So I'm just going to write a circle. So this is x and y, and that is the square. That is our circle for that x squared plus y squared equals 14. Then I have y equals x plus 3. When I have y equals x plus 3, is that first of all the gradient is 1 and the y-intercept is 3. So this is a bit more than 3, that radius of that circle. So the y-intercept is around here, and gradient of 1, this would be the line. The solution of a simultaneous equation is where those 2 equations intersect. Because when we say simultaneous equation, is about finding x and y's that satisfies both of those equations. And the only place graphically where those 2 equations are, both of them are satisfied, is when we have this intersection. Because in that intersection, the points are both in the line and on the circle, therefore they have to satisfy both of those equations, which is basically meaning of solving a simultaneous equation. And I have not put this completely into a scale, but you can see that x1 0.34, y1 3.34, it exactly satisfies this, which is this is basically x1 and y1 around right. x2 is minus 1.84 and y2 is 1.16. So as I said, this is not into scale, so this point somewhere around here. So this should have been a bit, my green line should have been somewhere around here. So this is the second point that we have that intersection. So this is the second point, and we have minus 1.84 and 1.16. Okay, so it's good to review the question, and now we go to the next one. This question is could be relating to the properties of circles. O is the center of the circle. O, A, B, C are points on the circumference. DB and DC are tangents. The angle CAB is X. CAB. So as we read this, if we don't see any information, we need to show it so that we can visualize the problem. So this is the X. So we need to put that value in. Find in simplest form, in terms of X, angle BOC. BOC. We know that both angle BOC and BAC, both of them are covering this arc. But O is from the center and A is on the circumference. And we know that based on the circle properties, we have this angle here would be twice of the angle that starts on the circumference. Angle in the center is twice. So this would be the value in here would be 2x. So the first part would be just 2x. Now find angle BDC. BDC is this one. Now to find that, if we imagine that we are going to continue this in here, this angle in here is covering half of the circle. Half of the circle. And which is that half of the circle, the amount of that arc is 180 degrees. And that angle in here is half of that, which is half of 180 is 90. So that would be 90 here. For the same reason, this is 90 there as well. So in a way, when we have with this form, we can prove that a radius from the center to a point of tangent line, it would make a 90-degree angle. Now, within this OCDB, we know that the total angles inside that, because we can make two triangles inside that, the total angles inside OCDB are 360, 2 times 180. So we already know that we have a 90 here and 90 here. Therefore, this angle 2x and this angle, they need to add up to 180. So angle BDC would be 180 minus 2x. 180 minus 2x. Now, the rest of the question, given that the line AB and CD are parallel, AB and CD are parallel, find in simplest form in terms of X angle ABO. Okay, for this, the second part, I'm going to clear this so that we can basically look at the second part. So far we know that this is 180 minus 2x, and we know that that is 2x and that's x. We want to find out this angle. And we also know that the AB is parallel to CD. A very important point, and that is what I see most of the time students, they just can't solve the problem. Any information given in the question needs to be used, and you need to rethink, and if you can't do anything, you need to read the question and see what is the information that's missing and you're not using it. So if we have, there's always a reason for things. So given that the line AB and CD are parallel, so you have to make use of that sentence. AB and CD are parallel. That means that I can basically say that this angle X equals to this angle X. The reason is that if I have two parallel lines and I have basically a line that intersects both of them, this angle and this angle are equal because they are alternate angles. And that is exactly what's happening here. If I just imagine that this is continuing, these lines, and this line is continuing, we have exactly that. We have two parallel lines and one intersection, another line that's intersecting, and we have that X and X equal. Another use of the parallel lines in here, that basically AB is parallel to CD, now is this side. So I'm going to change the color in here to show the angles. So this angle here is equal to this angle. So again, into a two parallel lines and intersection, that is equal to say that is similar to saying that this angle equals to that angle. So what that basically means is that we knew that this angle here is 90. We know that that angle there is 180 minus 2x. So the total of that angle, the other side, would be 90. So this angle ABO, that is what we want to find out. That would be 90 minus 180 minus 2x. So just I keep the bracket because the 90 in this total here is minusing that angle, which is 180 minus 2x, to give us this angle. That is what we are looking for. I need to keep the bracket to get this right. So if I expand that minus there, it would be 90 minus 180 plus 2x, and the final answer is 2x minus 90. So the answer would be 2x minus 90. The second part of the same question says find angle ACO. So ACO. So if I again clarify a bit my thing in here so that we can see where is that ACO is. So ACO is this one in here. This is very similar. Again, from the parallel, if you remember, we did say that as a result of the parallel lines, this is equal to that, which we used it to solve previous part. Now, we also said that this angle X equals to this angle X. But we know that total of this is 90. So this angle here would be 90 minus X. So the answer for this one would be 90 minus X. Okay, so that 90 minus X is the answer for the last part. Going to the next question. A group of P people were asked their ages in years. The total of their ages were 960 years. So we have P number of people, and total of the age is 960 years. I'm just going to write it down so that we can see the whole image. When 20 of people were removed from the group, when 20 of people were removed from the group, the total of the ages of remaining group was 480. So we removed 20, and the total now is 480. Given that mean of the original group was 3/4 of the mean of the remaining group, 3/4, the original was 3/4 of the remaining group, find the number of people in original group. Basically, we want to find out P, which is number of people. So I am going to write in here to give myself some parameters just to clarify what is happening. So on the first group, I'm going to consider that the mean was X. In a second, after removing that 20 people, I'm going to assume that the mean is X bar. Just the letters, just for us to be able to reduce and simplify the question to the parts that we can make an equation and solve. Now, I'm going to read the last sentence, which is important. Given that mean of the original group was 3/4 of the mean of the remaining group. So it means that X is equal to 3/4, 3/4 of X bar. So the mean of original was 3/4 of mean of the remaining group. So that is one thing that we need to consider. Now we concentrate on each one of X and X bar, which I've used in here. So we have number of people is in a first, before removing that 20 people, in here we have number of people is P, and total age is 960. So in here X is 960 divided by P, basically total years divided by number of people. In the second one, total years X bar equals total years is 480, but total number of people this time is P minus 20 because we have removed 20 people. All we need to do now is to replace these into this equation here and make an equation that the only unknown for it is P. So X would be 960 over P equals 3/4 times 480 over P minus 20. So we have made our equation and we have one unknown to solve, and the rest of this question is about solving this equation. 480, 960. Don't try to work with a large numbers. We can divide in here both sides to 480 because 960 divided by 480 is 2. So dividing by 480, that would be 1, and this divided by 480, that would be 2. So if I write it again, so that would be 2 over P equals 3 times 1 is 3 divided by 4 times P minus 20. Now, we are going to time both sides to P. So this times P and P simplify. So we have 2 equals 3P divided by 4 times P minus 20. I am also going to time both sides to 4 times P minus 20. So timing both sides to 4 times P minus 20, it basically means that 2 times 4 times P minus 20 equals 3P. I'm going to expand this. So 2 times 4 is 8. 8P minus 20 equals 3P. So 8P minus 8p, so 8 times p and 8 times minus 20, so 8p minus 160 equals 3p. And if I take the 3p to the other side, would be 5p equals 160. So I'm just going to do this in here. So 5p equals 160. And from here, p would be equal to 32. So what we are saying that original number of people in here was 32. Okay, we go to the next question. Again, this is relates to trigonometry. In the triangle shown, angle ABC equals 90 degrees. Angle ADB is 38 degrees. Angle ACD is 25 degrees. All of this information are in the image. In the length of this is 20 centimeters, so that's good. Find the area of the triangle ABC. So this is of the triangle ABC that basically includes the whole that triangle. So we want to find out the area of a triangle ABC, which is the total of that area. So just reminding ourselves, we know that the surface area of a triangle directly can be written as 2 times A times B times sine of C. This is the formula that we can use and you should be familiar. The reason that I wrote it in here, because knowing these formulas, I can simplify how we approach a question. So we can prove that where this formula is coming in a way that is still a height times base divided by 2. But I don't want to go through much detail in here. I'm just going to show what that formula is. So if this is A and this is B and this is angle C, the surface area of this triangle would be half of 2 sides times sine of the angle that is between those 2 sides. So that's important for us to know what that A, B, and C basically means. Coming back to the question, I can see that this is 38. That basically means that this side of this would be 180 minus 38, which is 142. That angle is important because in that triangle ACD, that gives us one more information that based on that we can write and use sine rule. So if on the triangle ADC, if I use sine rule, I can write sine of 25 over AD equals sine of 142 over AC equals, so this is 142 and that is 25. We can also find what is that angle. That angle would be 180 minus 142 minus 25. So if we do that, that would be 13. So this angle is 13. So that would be equal to sine of 13 over DC, which is 20. By doing this, we can now solve this equation here and find out what are the values or size of AD and AC. So I can look at here. I can use these 2 equations and solve it and find what is AC. So I am going to, just from these 2 equations, I can time both sides of this to 20 times AC, or I can just simply in here explain the another way of another sort of algebraic case that we can use, and that's called cross multiplication. So if we have A over B equals C over D, if we time both sides to BD and simplify, what we really have would be AD equals CB. In a way, we if we have an equation like this, we can write b times c equals a times d. So just have a thought about, think about it. This is an important and useful case just to simplify the cases. So the application in here is that we can write AC times sine of 13 equals 20 times sine of 142. So AC would be equal to 20 times sine of 142 divided by sine of 13. So I'm just going to use the calculator for this. So sine of 142 divided by sine of 13, and that is times by 20. So the answer is 54.74. I'm going to round it to 2 decimal. So 54.74. Now we can write the unit as well, which is centimeter. So that is the A value for the AC. I can do exactly the same thing and find out now the value for AD. So this time I am going to use this equation and this equation. So I'm just going to use sine 25 over AD equals sine 13 over 20. But I am also going to do that cross multiplication that I just mentioned. So I'm just going to write AD times sine 13 equals 20 times sine 25. AD in here would be equal to 20 times sine 25 divided by sine 13. Okay, I'm just going to again use the calculator here. So sine 25 equal divided by sine 13 and times 20, and the answer is again to 2 decimal place is 37.57. So I'm just going to write the values, things that we found in here. So this is 37.57. The other one is 54.74, which is logical because we do expect that AC is larger than AD. Now, to look back into that equation that we have, this in here, surface area equals half of A times B times sine C. Our plan now is that considering that we have this angle C, which is 25, and we have the size of AC, if we could find sine of BC, then we can use that equation because we have the AC, we have the BC, and we have the angle in between them, and we can use this equation and find the surface area. To find BC, we already know that BC is 20, so we only need to find BD. Now, coming back to this triangle here, ADB, which is a right angle, we have the hypotenuse, which is 37.57, and we have this angle 38, and this BD is adjacent. So we can write that cos of 38 equals BD divided by 37 times 37.57. So if we do this, sine of 38 equals that. So from here we can find out BD equals 37.57 times cos of 38. So I'm just going to time this again. So 37 times 57 times cos of 38. So the answer is 29.61. If we have now got this value, which is 29.61, and considering that DC is 20, total value of the BC would be 49.61. We just need to add them together. So what we now have is like, I'm just going to simplify it in the side in here so that we can exactly see what we are doing. So what we now have is like we have a triangle, which is ABC. This side is 25. This is, total of that is 49.61. And that is 54.74. Now, you could say that you can take two actions. You can either go and find out this by doing another use of trigonometry and then do height times base divided by 2. So that would be this times that divided by 2. Or you can just use directly that formula above, because we have two sides and the angle in between them. So that A, we can consider that A is basically 54.74. The B is 49.61. And over C, angle is 25 degrees. So all I need to do now is to put these numbers into a calculator and find the total surface area. So that would be 54.74 times 49.61 times sine of 25, and all of that divided by 2. So the final answer, again to two decimal place, is 573.84. So 573.84 centimeter squared. That would be the total surface area for triangle ABC. Okay, the next answer is factorize. And as I had said before, in one of the questions exactly in this video, I said that we need to go and check factorization. We need to check the common terms first, and then difference of two squares, and then quadratic. Coming in here, if I want to look at common terms, between 100 and 65 and 75, the first number that comes to my head, and I know that all of them, they are divisible to that, is 5. And then we have ax squared, axy, and ay squared. So a is definitely the same term in all of them, is a common term. X is not common term because that is not on the third one. And basically y also is not common term. So if I only use 5a, which is a common term and common, if you like, factor, and take this, put a bracket, what remaining one would be 20x squared plus 13xy minus 15 divided by 5 minus 15 y squared. So we have 5a times 20x squared plus 13xy minus 15y squared. This second part, which is a bracket, if we look at the direction of looking at factorization, we don't have any common terms on the second one. It is not a difference of two squares. The only other option is a quadratic form. I know that normal quadratic forms are normally we have a number. So we normally have something like, we might have 6x squared minus 10x plus 5, just something like that. But now we have in here, we have a x and y, both of them as the parameters. So irrespective of if this is a y or a number, we can still apply exactly the same principles that we applied for factorizing quadratic equations. So what I'm going to do in here for this, just that section there, I can again put two brackets. Two brackets could be 20x and x. It could be, again, another two brackets, which can be 10x and 2x, because these timing together, they basically give us 20x. So that's what we are looking for. And this can be 10x. We have also 5x and 4x. So we could have 20x and x, 10x, 2x, and 4x, 5x, 4x, which is timing to give us 20x squared. Now, on the second part, we are looking for two set of numbers that they are related to y, and they have a y, and they time together and they give us minus 15y squared, because this times that should give us minus 15y squared. So what are those sets? Minus 15y squared, y squared. So we can say minus y and 15y. We can also say 15y and so I just write this again. I can also say y and minus 15y. I can also say what is timing to give us 15y squared. I can say 3y and minus 5y. And I can also say minus 3y and plus 5y. All of these timing together would give us minus 15y squared. Now, what we need to do, one by one, check these pairs into here. Each one of, and we need to check it into here, and all of this. And then just to see, by if we add and we expand these two, we will have 13xy squared, 13xy appearing when we expand, if we expand basically these in here. This is not a very straightforward and easy job to do. And the other thing that you need to do, consider, is that because we have 20x and x and they are not same, every time that we check minus y and 15y, we also need to check 15y and minus y in reverse, because reverse makes a difference. So we need also to check for here minus 15y and y, because the order does matter. So again, we need to check minus 5y and 3y, and we need to check 5y and minus 3y. I am going to put the information here. So the easiest way to look at all of this is that what sort of combination of 15 and 1 timing 2, 20 and 1, or 10 and 2, or 5 and 4 gives us 13? Or what sort of combination of 3 and 5? If I just start, I just want to show you one of these, and if I just start with 15y and minus y, we just need to look at considering this in our head rather than writing down, because there are a lot of things to test. So writing all of this would take a long time. So if I this is all in my head, but I want to write it down so that to show you. So if I just consider 15y there and minus y, minus 50, plus 15y times that would give us 15xy. Minus y times that would give us minus 20xy. So minus 20xy and 15xy would be minus 5xy. That minus 5xy is not equal to 13xy. That is what we are looking for. So that is not the right answer. So that is not the right answer. In fact, with the values for 20x and 1x, none of these is the right answer. We can't get any 13xy. And if we check all of these combinations, the one that we get, and that should be right, is somewhere a combination of 5 and 4 and 3 and 5. If I just imagine myself, 5 times 5 is 25. 3 times 4 is 12. 25 minus 12 is 13. So we have some sort of chance there to get that 13xy as we were looking for. So if I look at that, if I add in here plus 5y and this side minus 3y, 5y times 5x is 25xy. And minus 3y times 4x is minus 12xy. So 25xy minus 12xy certainly gives us 13xy, and that is exactly what we are looking for. So this is exactly the right choice, minus 3y and 5y in that order. So the final answer for this question would be 5a times 5x minus 3y, and that is times 4x plus 5y. Again, I do emphasize in here that you need to go through that order of factorization. If we don't do this take 5a out first, we will not get to a point that we can factorize this further. So the first point to look is always common factor or common terms, and then common denominator, and the final point to look is the quadratic. So you need to look at factorizing in that order. Okay, if we go to the next question, the question says solve the equation 4 over 2x minus 1 plus 1 equals 3 over 4x minus 1. So I am going to start factorizing, doing a common denominator in the left hand side. So 4 over 2x minus 1 plus 1. So common denominator is 2x minus 1. The top would be 4 plus 1 times 2x. Let's see, 2x minus 1. So that's a common denominator in the left hand side. And the right hand side is 3 over 4x minus 1. If I simplify this in here, that would be 4 plus 2x minus 1. So that would be 2x plus 3. So that would be basically 2x plus 3 divided by 2x minus 1 equals 3 over 4x minus 1. And if I do that cross multiplication that I have mentioned before in the previous questions, I would get 3 times 2x minus 1 equals 2x plus 3 times 4x minus 1. Now all I need to do is expanding and making this in a form of a standard quadratic equation. So that would be 6x minus 3 equals 8x squared minus 2x plus 12x minus 3. So I'm going to take what we have in the left to the right and equate it to equal to 0. So the standard form would be 8x squared. So on the right hand side, I already have minus 2x plus 12x, which would be 10x. And 6x comes to that side, becomes minus. So this would be plus 4x. And I have minus 3 and the minus 3 other side. So minus 3 comes to this side, becomes plus. And that simplifies, so that would be 0. So that would be equal to 0. So I can factorize this in here. So x times 8x plus 4 equals 0. When we have two terms like this times together equaling 0, that means that at least one of them could, if one of them is 0, then that would be, that would satisfy, we have satisfied this equation. So that means that either x equals to 0 or 8x plus 4 could be equal to 0. So from the second one, if we take the 4 to the other side, it would be minus 4. X would be minus 4 divided by 8. So x would be minus 1 over 2. So the answers that we have in here is x equals 0 and other x would be equal to minus 1 over 2 or half. So just again, you can cross-check your answer. I'm just going to check the 0 one, which is easy. If I put 0 in here in this equation, 4 divided by minus 1 would be minus 4 plus 1 equals 3 divided by minus 1, which is minus 3. As you can see, this is the left and right are exactly equal. So just a quick cross-checking the answer. Now, on question 17, we have a table of length M of mobile phone sales to a company is shown. So we have a length of 0 to between 0 and 3, 3 and 12, and in different categories, and then we have a frequency in the different classes, and then we have a frequency. On the grid provided, draw a clearly labeled histogram to illustrate this data. So what is important about histograms is that in the histograms, the surface area of the histogram represents the frequency. So when we say the surface area represents the frequency, what that basically means is that this is if this is a class width, and this would be frequency density. So that would be the frequency density. So we know that frequency density times class width equals frequency, or we can say that frequency density equals frequency divided by class width. Okay, so if we have in here frequency, I can add a table in here and I can just do it like frequency density. And all I need to do is divide the frequency to that class width. So 6 divided by 3, the first one would be 3. The second one, 9 divided by 9 would be 1. The third one, 12 divided by 8. Okay, 12 divided by 8 would be 1.5. And fourth one is 18 divided by 12. And 18 divided by 12, if we simplify it, again, that would be 1.5. And then 10 divided by 4, which is 2.5. And the last one is 12 divided by 5. 12 divided by 5 is 2.4. So that would be the last one. So we need to arrange our histogram in a way that we are accommodating those data, which is the highest one is 3. And I also need to we also need to accommodate the sort of the class widths, which is between 0 and 41. So if I look at here, I can count in here that I have about 5, and I am going to do that is 10 and 15, about 15 there, and then 20 and 25 and 30 and 35, 40 and 45. So I can cover my class width, which is the maximum is 41, within that area. On my vertical axis, I need to cover up to 3, and I have 1.5, 1.5, 2.5, 2.4. So it would be good for me to have that precision on 0, up to 0.1. So if I could put every 10 of these as just one unit, every vertical, so 3, 3, and 3, and this would be 1, 3, 3, and 3, and this would be 2, and 3, 3, and 3, and 1, that would be 3. And I think that is what I need because I don't have more than 3. So I'm just going to consider that. So on the first one, I have 0 to 3, and that frequency density is 3. So I'm just going to change the color, and basically all I need to do on the first 3 of these in here, I need to draw all the way up to 3. So that would be my histogram on the first one. The second one, 3 to 12, and that is 1. So 12 is somewhere around here, and 1 is there, so this would be that. And then I have 12 to 20, and that is 1.5. So I need to go up about in here, and 1.5 around to 20, so that would be in here. And then I need to do 20 to 32, and that is 1.5 again. So 32 is around here, so that is 1.5 again. So I'm just going to continue the same line. And then 2.5 is 32 to 36. So this is 36. I'm going to up to 2.5. So 2.5 is somewhere around here. And that would be coming here and connecting here. And finally, I have 36 to 41. And that is 2.4. So 2.4 would be 1 less than 2.5. So that is up to 41. So I'm just going to continue doing that. So this would be the frequency diagram. So frequency density on the vertical side, and this is the class widths. And this is generally a sort of in a way we need to make it suitable for the grid paper that has been given to us. So this is the histogram. So I move to the next question, sorry, the same question, but continuation of the same question. So estimate the number of calls that were between 15 and 35 seconds. So between 15 and 35 seconds. So as I mentioned on the very beginning, the surface area of a histogram is a frequency. So the number that we are looking is between 15 and 35. So if I go back in here and look at my number of 15, which is basically in here, I'm just going to change the color so that we see we are not mixing that with the first part of the question. So this would be 15. And then we have, what was the other number, is 35. So 35 is somewhere around here. Yeah, that's 41, and that is 35. So all we need to do is to basically find out the surface area of this section to be able to find out the number. So if I look at here, I have basically, I'm just going to write these two numbers because 15 and 35. So we are looking for between 15 and 35. So 15 is somewhere around here. So that has the height of 12. So we had the 15 until the point of 32 is 1.5. So 15 to 32 is 17. 17 times 1.5. So that would be 17 times 1.5. And then from 32 to 35 is 2, is 3 times And what is the height of this section here, this height, and that is 2.5. So if we add up these these values, 17 times 1.5. So I'm just going to use the calculator here. 1.5, 25.5 plus 7.5 would be 33. So the answer for the first part is 33. So I'm just going to clear this and write the answer in the next page. Okay, so the answer here is 33. Explain what is a stratified sample. Stratified sample is that we choose our samples for different categories proportional to the number of those specific categories. Okay, and the stratified sample is explain what a stratified sample is. Stratified sample is when we have, I think, 2 points we need to put because it has 2 marks. Population is divided into groups when we want to sample, take a sample, and then the sample from each group is proportional to the number of population of each group. So if we have a larger group, we would proportionally select more samples from that larger group compared to other smaller groups. So these points that needs to be considered to get 2 marks. Now the rest of the question is: a stratified sample of size 25 is to be taken from those calls which are shorter than 30 seconds. Estimate how many of these will be greater than 12 seconds. So stratify, the total number is 25, and this is going to be taken from calls which are shorter than 30 seconds, and we want to see how many are greater than 12. So I'm just going to write the information here. Total sample is 25, less than 30. We want to see how many is larger than 12. So again, I'm going to change the color in here. So I'm looking at here 30, less than 30. So we have 10 in here. So this is where we have the over 30 in here. So this is where this is. So I am going to make again 4 groups in here because I'm going to look at less than 12. Less than 12 basically satisfies this section. So I can also look at two groups, because less than 12 and over 12. So we basically do the proportion based on less than 12 and over 12. So we really need to find out what is the population less than 30 and higher than 12, which is this surface area here. That surface area there is basically 1.5 times 18. So 1.5 times 18, that is the number, the total number would be 27. Now, the other surface area now, this side, including the first part, which is less than 12, that is a frequency of that would be total frequency, and we can find it from the table as well, 6 plus 9, which is basically 15. So total of this part is 15. Now, we want to make the 25 samples in a proportion of 15 and 27. So 25 samples in proportion of 15 and 27. Now, what I will do is that I will add the 15 plus 27, which is the total, if you like, share of the proportion. So that would be 42. And then I will divide 25 to 42. And that would give me just one share, because we are dividing 25 between 15 and 27. And considering that question says that we are looking for estimate how many of these will be greater than 12, so our interest is proportion of 27. So I can write this 25 over 42 times 27. That would be the number out of 25 that we need to make to have a stratified sampling of over 12. So if I want to time that, I can simplify this. This divided by 3, that would be 14. This divided by 3 would be 9. And that I can't simplify that more, 175 divided by 14. And so it's not 175, my mistake. 9 times 25, that would be 225. So I'm just going to divide this on a calculator. So that would be 225 divided by 14. And that would give me 16.07. But if I round this up, so the 16 would be the rounding number. So out of this 25, 16 of them would be should be for stratified sampling should be higher than they have a higher than 12. They're higher than 12 seconds, between 12 and 30. And the rest, which is 9, is less than 12. So the other answer for that question, which is interested for higher than 12, is 16. Again, I'm just going to clear this in here and write the answer. So I'm clearing just in case that we are not mixing the rest of the question on the other side. So I'm going to, based on that, this answer will be 16. Okay, finally calculate the estimate of interquartile range of lengths of calls. So interquartile range. I am going back again in here. Again, I'm going to use now a different color. Interquartile range is basically area, the sort of range between lower quartile and upper quartile. Total number of the total number of frequencies that we have in here, the total number of the data that we have in here, if we add this up in here, that all of it together, we have 30, 40, 5, and then we have 15, 45, 55, and 67. So our total frequency is 67 if we add these up. Now, lower quartile is n plus 1 over 4th data, and upper quartile is 3 times n plus 1, or 3/4 of n plus 1 data. That would be the number of data that we have. So n plus 1 divided by 4, 68 would be 67 plus 1 divided by 2, 68 divided by 4. This would be basically is 17ths. And this one is, again, n plus 1 is 17 times 3 would be 51, 51st, basically. So now we need to look at these and find out what is our interquartile range in seconds. So 17th data in here, we have 6 in here, and 15th in 9 in there would be 15th. So the second one, so the 17th is within this area, within that class of between 12 and 20. And between 12 and 20 is about 8, and we have 12 frequencies. So as an estimate, we can say that we can divide 8 to 12, which would be 2 over third. So each one, we can divide that, each one frequency is 2 over third divided between 12 and 20. So considering that we are looking for 17ths, and we have got 6 and 9, which is 15, and we need just 2 more, basically 17ths would be, as an estimate, 12 plus 2 times 8 divided by 12, which is 2 over 3. Okay, so I divided the 12 to 20 to 12 sections. And out of those 12 sections, I just need 2 sections because I have 6 and 9 there. And for 17ths, to get the 17ths, I just need to add 2 more. To get the 51st, I am again need to add up these things together. So 6 to 9 is 15, plus 12 is 20, plus this 12 and 18 is 30, 30 plus 15 is 45, plus 10 is 55. So we are in this class between 32 and 36. And again, I need to divide this to 32 to 36 to 10 sections because I have 10 frequencies. So each section would be 0.4 divided by 10, which is 0.4. So 32, 32.4, 32.8, 33.2, and that is 34. I need to put that 10 frequency inside that class. And out of that 51st up to here, I have 45. 51st would be 6 in there. So 6 in there would be 32 plus 6 times 0.4. Because each section, when I divide that class to 10, it would give me 0.4. So if I add these two, 6 times 0.4 is 2.4. So this would be 34.4. And this one, 2 times 2 over 3 is 1.33 plus 12 is 13.33. So therefore, interquartile range would be this 34.4 minus 13.33. If we minus this, we will get a value of 21.07. So 21.07, which is the answer for the last question. And because this is an estimate, and it has 4 marks, I do think that you need to consider that 21.07. So this is the best estimate that we can make. And the reason that is estimate, because we are assuming, we make an assumption in here that in each class, when we have, for example, between 3 and 12, we have 9. For example, between 12 and 20, we have 12. That 12 frequency is equally divided between 12 and 20, which in practice, it may not be the case. But because we make that assumption, this is an estimate. But in reality, we have to go through all of these details and find out that value based on that estimate. And its estimate, in a way, it does not mean that we just look and find out. We have 4 marks in here for this question, and we need to go through every detail. And the reason that is estimate is just because of that assumption. Okay, so we have the next question. Quality of written communication will be assessed in this question. A customer bought a number of toys all at the same price. In total, she spent £60. So I'm just going to write it in here a bit larger. So number of toys. If the price of each toy had been £1 more, she could have bought 16 less toys for £60. Okay, find the price paid for each toy. Okay, I am going to consider that a customer bought a number of toys all at the same price, and she spent £60. So I'm going to consider that the customer, in the first instance, which she did buy a number of toys for £60, in the first instance, she bought n toys for £60. So the number of toys from here would be from here, because that would be 60, the number of toys. If I just put the number of toys is that, but if the price of the toys, if I show the price with a P, price is 60 divided by number of toys, which is n. Okay, that was the first instance. In the second instance, it says if the price of each toy had been £1 more. So just imagine that the price is £1 more. She could have bought 16 less toys for £60. So the number of toys that she could have bought would be n minus 16. And that is still for £60. But the number of toys is the price of each toy is £1 more. So we are going to say P plus 1, because it's £1 more, equals 60 divided by n minus 16. So these are the equations that we can get by reading this question and putting this into a mathematical equation. Now, I just need to solve this in here. So I am going to basically simplify this a bit. So for this one, I'm going to write that P times n equals 60. For this one, I can write P plus 1 times n minus 16 equals 60, timing both sides to n minus 16. So I am going to expand the second one, because I'm going to expand the second one first. So I'm going to write Pn plus n, Pn plus n minus 16 P minus 16 equals 60. That is expanding the second part, so that is that. Now, from first part, I know that Pn equals 60, so I can replace this with 60. I can also replace P from here. We know that I can write in here P, or we already have that P equals 16 over n, so I don't need to write it down. So I'm going to replace that in here. So I'm going to replace that p with 60 over n. So after doing all of this, what I will have is this 60 plus n minus 16 times 60 over n minus 16 equals 60. If I minus 60 both sides, and what I will have is n minus 16 times 60 over n minus 16 equals 0. If I time everything to n, then I will have n squared minus 16 times 60, this is times, minus 16n equals 0. And if I put it into a standard form, this would be n squared minus 16n minus 16 times 60. So 16 times 60 is 960. So I'm just going to put 960 equals 0. No, that is a standard quadratic equation. So standard quadratic equation, this is the third time that we are using that formula here. In this exam paper, minus b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And you can see that how a formula can be useful in different questions under learning a quadratic formula. So I'm just going to put information in to find the value for n. I put x, but it is the same as n, it's the same thing, so I just put it that. So n would be equal to minus b, which is 16, plus minus square root of b squared, which is minus 16 squared, which is 256, and minus 4ac. When I come to minus 4ac, because c is minus, and minus, I have another minus on before 4, so minus times minus would be plus. So I'm going to write plus 4 times 960 times 1, which is the same thing. So I'm just going to write that divided by 2a, which is just 2 times 1. So I'm going to, on my calculator, to go to do 960 times 4 plus 256 and square root that. The answer is 64, which is a good news. So good news is because we have a whole number. So 16 plus minus 64 divided by 2. Because n in here is number of toys, it cannot be negative. So that negative part we can ignore. So the negative answer is not the right answer. So we just look at the positive answer. So 16 plus 64 would be 80 divided by 2 would be 40. So the final answer in here, so we have got n that we are finding is a number of toys, and then we need to put that back into this equation to find the price, because the question is asking find the price paid for each toy. So 60 and over n is 40, so p would be 60 divided by 40, which would be £1.50. So this would be £1 and 50 pence. Okay, we go to the next question, and this is the final question, and this has 8 marks in total. 2 Coast Guard stations P and Q are 7 kilometers apart, and P is due west of Q. So with this sort of question, you definitely need to make a drawing and understand how the question, basically how these points are, where they're located, and how we can solve it. So we have a P is due west of a Q. So I'm going to write the P in here, and this is Q. So our P is at the west, and this is 7 kilometers. From P, the bearing of two ships A and B are 0.24 and 0.65 degrees respectively. So if I just look at the first one, the bearing of ship A from P, the bearing of ship A from P is 24. So how we can put this into our drawing in here? So we know that the bearing is an angle that is a clockwise angle from the north line. So from P, 24 degrees. So we are looking at somewhere around here. So somewhere around here is ship A, and that is 24. And B is 65. So this is about in here, somewhere around here is B, and that is 65. So from P, the bearing of A. Okay. From Q, the bearings of A and B are 291 and 336 respectively from Q. So I'm going to change the color in here. The bearing from Q would be this angle in this side. So I'm just going to again connect these in here. And this angle here is 291. And this angle here, the larger angle, is 336. Find the distance between the ships. So find the distance between the ships. So we are going to find what is the distance between these two ships. So in a way, what is the length of AB? For this sort of questions, there's definitely different ways to do it, and sometimes in the exam circumstances, and possibly this is a somewhere around a level 8-9 question, depending on what sort of method comes in your head, you need to start doing something and then finding and evaluating your method. And what I'm going to do for this question here is I'm going to simplify this in here, and I'm going to try and put a line in here, and I'm going to put another line in here. And if I could find the distances around here and here and here, and basically also the lines in here, I should be able to do a Pythagoras and find the value of AB within this triangle that I have in here. That is a right angle triangle. So I'm going to give some values in here. So I'm going to call this this point M. I'm going to call this point N. Considering that I have 24 in this angle here, this angle here would be 90 minus that, which is 66. And I also know that this angle here would be 291 minus 270, because we are just reducing that 270 out of that, so that would be 21. So if I look at the triangle APM, I can write that tan of 66 equals AM over PM. I can Also, on the triangle AMQ, I can write tan of 21 equals AM over MQ. I also know that PM plus MQ equals 7, because that is 7 kilometers that we have. So by combining these equations in here, I can first of all equate AM to each other. So I take the AM from this equation in the top equation and equate it to an equation in the middle. So from these two, AM from the top one would be PM tan of 66 equals MQ tan of 21. Okay, I can now replace one of these, basically PM, I can replace from here. I can write PM from here equals 7 minus MQ. So I can replace this PM into the top equation. So by doing that, I will have 7 minus MQ times tan of 66 equals MQ tan of 21. So as you can see, I'm doing all of this to reduce my equation to one unknown, which is MQ. Okay, so if I now try to simplify this and solve the value for MQ, I will have a 7 tan of 66 minus MQ tan of 66 equals MQ tan of 21. So I can take that minus MQ tan 66 to the other side and factorize MQ and then divide to that value. So if I do all of this, I'm just going to use the calculator to get the answer. So I am going to do basically 7 times tan 66, and that would be divided by bracket, again tan 66, plus tan 21. So if I divide this, the value for MQ that I get is 5.98. So MQ is 5.98. And based on that, I can then find out that my PM is 1.02. So, and therefore PM would be 1.02. And the reason that is both of them, they need to add up to 7. So I have the PM and MQ from here, which is good. I can also basically find out what is the length of AM, because I can put one of these into equations at the top and one of these equations in here and find out what is AM. For example, I know that AM equals from here, AM equals PM times tan of 66. So I can do that. So I can do tan of 66 times PM, which is 1.02. So that would give me 2.29. So I'm just going to write it in here. So AM equals 2.29. So we want now to do exactly the same thing and find out Pn NQ. We can do the exactly same thing and find out what is Pn NQ and Bn. Exactly the same method. Okay, so if I do that, I am going to write the same thing this time for two other triangles. So I'm going to write it in this side. So I'm going to consider triangle BPN, and I'm going to say Bn equals, and I need to, in here again, be careful because this is 65. So this angle here would be 25. Okay, I need to get those angles out. And this angle here, this angle, this side, this angle, that is 336 minus 270, that would be 66. So that angle is 66, okay? So we have 25 and 66 in the other side. So if I again, just quickly check 25, exactly, yes, right, and 66 to 66, again, that is right, yes. Okay, so we have Bn equals so I can start from the tan rather than writing Bn. I can write tan of 25 equals, so tan of 25 equals Bn over Pn. Bn over Pn. And tan of 66 equals Bn over Nq. Okay. And then, same as other one, I can write Pn plus Nq equals 7. So exactly the same as the other one. We're just looking at two other triangles. Again, I'm just going to repeat the same process the other side we did. So from these two, I'm going to write Bn tan 25 equals Nq tan 66. And then from here, I can write Bn Pn, so sorry, it's a P in here, so yes, Pn equals 7 minus Nq. I'm going to replace that into that equation. So my equation, simplified equation would be tan of 25 times 7 minus Nq equals Nq tan 66. So if I time this together, so it would be 7 tan 25 minus Nq tan 25 equals Nq tan 66. And I need to take the Nq to the other side, factorize, and then divide to the coefficient. So if I do that now on the calculator, I'm going to write it in here. 7 times tan of 25 divided by bracket tan of 25 plus tan of 66. So this is 1.2. So NQ in here is 1.2. And if I, yes, 20, I just put 1.20 because just to show that I'm just considering two decimal. And from there, if NQ is 1.20, Pn would be 7 minus that, so Pn would be equal to 7 minus this, which would be 5.80. And then I can also add, put these into one of these equations at the top and find out what is Bn. Bn would be Pn times tan 25. So Pn is 580 times tan 25. So that is 2.70. So Bn is 2.70. So I come back in here. I'm going to call this point in here, this point H. I know that my Pn is equal to 5.80. And I know that Pm equals 1.02. So I can, by adding these together, I'm just going to write it at the top in here, I can find that my Mn equals Bh equals Pn, which is 5.80 minus 1.02. So that would be 4.78. Okay. I can also find out that AH is AM minus BN. So AH equals AM minus BN. So AM is, we have found the value is 2.29 minus BN. BN is 2.70. So, and what I get is a minus value of minus 0.41. Okay, you might think of this point that, oh, something is wrong because we have got a minus value, but just imagine that what we are doing in here, the shape that we are doing in here, it is not up to scale. So that basically means that we could have a case that our B is in here and our A is in here, which is the case. And that is why we get a minus number. But that, in essence, doesn't change the general solution method that we are using. So the reason that we got a minus because we got AB in that. But if we had got AB in this form, we would have got a positive number. So that really doesn't change, and we would consider that positive number to solve the rest of this problem. Make a positive value of that. So ABH is a right angle triangle, and we can do a Pythagoras to find what is AB. So the one side of that is 0.41 and the other side is 4.78. So I am going to do 4.78 squared plus 0.41 squared, and then all of that square root. And again with 2 decimal, the answer that I get at the end is 4.80. So the distance between A and B is 4.80 kilometer using this Pythagoras method. As you can see, the last question is very much examines your creativity on different aspects. Not just last question, that there were few questions in total that they do examine your creativity. Some of them, they were about basically constructing equations and solving for finding an unknown. So that constructing equation is important part. And this equation, this question too. So this is the end of this exam paper for a total of 2 hours. And I think we have done this with less than 2 hours, but whatever the time is, I don't know at the moment, but I have gone through each one of them and I have to explain. I wanted to explain the details, and I do explain the background, because the intention is about learning rather than sitting in an exam and writing the just the answers. So I hope this video has been useful, especially with different types of questions and the backgrounds. And don't just look at the question, do definitely concentrate on some background explanation on different cases, and watch other videos that are in the channel in the YouTube channel that they are subject oriented rather than just looking at solving exam paper. And subscribe to the channel for updates and for supporting these videos and having more videos on